you're a brand new player in Duet Night Abyss, there are a lot of new characters you can spend your resources on. Problem is, when you are a beginner, you don't actually have unlimited resources, so knowing what the absolute best progression for which characters you should pick is very much worthwhile and can absolutely jump start your progress, helping you reach endgame a lot faster. And so today I'm here with a full beginner focused tier list, ranking characters based on how useful they are early on, especially usually taking info on how easy they are to get, especially for a newer player, how fast you can obtain them, how quickly you can get up to necessary investment and such, and also how much value they do give you for the resources you are putting into them. Huge thanks to Duet Night Abyss for sponsoring this video, but all these opinions on each character are my own. Feel free to comment down below what you do think as well. Before we get into the actual tier list, I do want to talk about this specific mode. In this video, a lot of times I'm going to be referring to something called secret letter clues, and they are obtained through covert commissions. Basically, all the important characters we're talking about today are obtained through them. This is something extremely accessible at really all times once you do actually unlock it. So the absolute first character I recommend starting off with is Rhythm. Rhythm is a DPS and actually one of the best farming units in the game even later on, so you can imagine how good that especially is earlier on. The way she works is Rhythm will enter a constant sanity drain state, which lets her continuously do damage around herself. That alone is actually already quite good for clearing, especially earlier on, but once you do get her I2, that's when Rhythm gets really damn strong. And this is also some of the first things you do want to gun for, because once you do get Rhythm's I2, her damage now can chain within a 20-meter radius, pretty much meaning you can target onto one actual target, so once they are hit, it will chain to the next, and then the one after that, and the one after that. It can open so much damage over time and let you hit enemies so far out, since that is going to be constantly chaining within a 20-meter radius. Fantastic for your farming runs and fantastic for your clearing. But I do especially want to say that I2 Rhythm is like the biggest breakpoint that makes her worth building. Before that, she's pretty alright, but you really want to gun for that, but it is really easy to do early on anyways, thanks to the secret letter clues you can farm. So that's why overall getting her I2 isn't really that hard, and you can gun it very early on. You can actually get a full Rhythm on day 3 alone, and then focus the rest of your dupes from secret letter clues into her to speed up to that I2 process. So starting a new account, overall Rhythm and especially Rhythm's I2 should be your first priority above all else. Next up is actually both Fushu and Fina. I'm putting these two together because they're a really strong support core overall, but they work really damn good with Rhythm. And if you're already gunning it for that I2 Rhythm, you can imagine this is going to be the best core you can get to absolutely shred through everything. So starting it off with Fushu first, basically she's going to be a character to provide energy and also sustain. She provides constant energy and also has automatic sustain, which will let your team consistently function properly. But the best part is she's able to actually increase ability strength based off her own ability strength. So rather than just increasing your damage directly, she's improving the effectiveness of buffs and abilities across the entire team. On top of that, she's also able to provide attack speed to the entire team. So overall, if your actual team requires energy frequently or benefits from constantly using abilities, Fushu is basically a must-have. And since, if you remember, Rhythm is constantly draining sanity, which is the energy equivalent, that's going to be fantastic for her and also benefits from the buffing. So Fushu pairs so good with Rhythm. Then we talk about Fina as well. Fina also is a character that wants to get to I2, and just like Rhythm, it's very easy to obtain. At a base, so without dupes, Fina's ultimate allows you to do element of damage alongside your current character's base element, so you're basically doing 2 characters' element damage. So for starters, when you are getting her for first time and just in general, she's going to be both doing damage and also buffing the team that enables multi-element damage. Her first dupe is also very notable as it does provide something called Res Pen, and her second dupe is able to increase the maximum numbers of stacks for her damage dealt effects, and at the same time lets you build up the stacks even faster. So Fushu and Fina are going to be pretty much on equal playing fields, while Fina does want I2 at least. So your biggest core to farm right away is going to be first focusing on Rhythm and her I2, then get Fushu, and then get Fina as well, then focus on Fina I2, and you basically have the absolute best combination for the starting of the game. This start is so strong, it's going to be even better later on once you get further dupes into your characters, better gear, so on and so forth, as this actual core is super viable for late game stuff as well. Next up is Psyche. Psyche is a single target focused DPS you can farm through secret letter clues, and she quite literally is one of, if not the best single target DPS there is. Her entire gimmick is basically the lower HP she gets, the stronger she does become, and she's also extremely easy to use. Basically just activate her ultimate, start shooting, and then use her skill when necessary, and that's really it. Psyche also does function differently. She doesn't have the same constant sanity drain mechanic as Rhythm, but as I did mention, Psyche instead will drain her own HP, which lets her take advantage of her low HP scaling. Psyche I1 is super recommended because not only does it significantly increase her damage, it also lets her gain some self-healing, so self-sustainability on a character that is constantly draining HP is going to be very good. So while Rhythm is a character I'd prioritize for general farming and AoE, and that's going to be most of your content, Psyche is an amazing single target option, so when you are in need of that single target option, she is basically the best one you can get. She's only overall below Rhythm and the others because Rhythm just provides a lot more value since a lot more content is tailored towards what Rhythm does. But that doesn't mean Psyche is worse in a sense. In her role, she's basically the best single target option and is going to be a fantastic pickup as well, especially once you get that I1. Next to talk about is Truffle and Filbert. This is another character that's particularly useful for beginners because she's very easy to build. She's really always going to be a combat AI, and her skill is also just very valuable. Not only is it basically the best heals you can possibly get in the entire game, but it also provides you a damage buff. And the best part, especially for beginners, is you don't really have to heavily invest into her gear to get a lot of value. She's really just good at all times. The biggest value she does get is just simply leveling up her skill rather than worrying too much on demon wedges. She also scales with HP and can technically function as a DPS herself, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that as a beginner at all. Mainly just focus on her healing and supportive function as a combat AI. She's an extremely comfortable character and just good to have in general, especially if you're kind of struggling to survive. So if you find yourself dying a lot in a certain stage, Truffle and Filbert, as I mentioned, has basically the best heal you possibly can get out of a character and is just very easy to build. You just level up skill, as I also did mention, rather than focusing too much on her gear, and you would be good to go. She can help you tons. Next character I want to talk about is Margie. I'm gonna be honest, there's not much to mention here about Margie specifically. She's just a straightforward attack buffer that functions as a combat AI, and that's kind of her entire purpose. Even though it's really simple, don't really mistake her for being bad, especially for a beginner. Having a character that can simply just sit there and increase your attack is super useful. But the biggest problem is the moment you get a character that is more valuable than her actual value just drops and you replace her very easily. But since she's able to be used right out the gate when you do start, she's gonna be a solid option for your teams right there. But yeah, the moment you get Fushu Fina, you're gonna replace Margie basically immediately. So you kind of look at Margie as a temporary support that can help you get your account started, and then once you do get the stronger supports such as Fushu and Fina, that's when you just go ahead and replace her. Finally, I want to talk about Tabitha. So Tabitha is another straightforward support focusing on skill damage. Pretty much she has a solid skill damage buff, and her combat AI also does contribute to that buff. So when you pair her with skill related DPS, Tabitha herself is actually quite useful. The main issue is that you're probably not going to actually get her before you've already started working toward Fushu and Fina, and because of that, there's not really a big reason to go out your way to prioritize her. But if you happen to actually get her early, she is perfectly usable. A simple character that's easy to understand and does provide a useful buff in the form of the skill damage increases. But yeah, just not nearly as important as someone like Fushu or Fina, hence why I'm not placing her at that higher tier. This next tier I'm talking about is just something I have multiple characters put into one, and I just call it the great tier. It's because these characters are actually not bad at all. In fact, these characters with higher investment makes a lot of these DPS characters very strong. The problem is, if you are a beginner, your resources are limited, and then when you do compare these characters to someone like Psyche, you're generally getting more value by investing into Psyche first. That's also kind of why I don't really recommend prioritizing these characters early on, but all these characters do become significantly more valuable later in the game. For a main example, they'll especially help you in the immersive theater, which is one of the game's more endgame focused modes. So once you actually have already established your account and have your most important characters already built, these are characters absolutely worth coming back to focus. But when you are brand new, I would not worry about them yet, as the other characters I mentioned and their roles, especially at the very top with Fushu, Fina, and then Rhythm as a DPS, Psyche single target DPS, I would not place them anywhere near their value, especially earlier on, hence why I would not really focus on this now. Then the ignore tier. This is also quite straightforward. These are characters for your early progression at least. don't really have much of a use. So these characters are ones that I would basically just ignore entirely and would only come back to them much later once you do have everything you already do need. So your main characters built, your main teams built, multiple other characters for other options built, that's when I would return to these characters. I would not waste your early resources trying to force these characters to work when you have so many better options available, as we talked about previously. And finally, to end it all off, I want to talk about the tier for weekly characters. These are a little different because you're going to obtain them gradually through your weekly runs, hence why they are called weekly characters. But even as a beginner, you really should be doing those weekly runs. You might not be able to farm all the characters immediately because they do require a higher level of progression overall as opposed to the other characters mentioned with secret letter clues and such, but eventually you'll reach a point where you are able to farm them consistently. Some characters will take longer to obtain and farm than others, but there's one specific character I do want to talk about, and that is Flora. Flora is currently the best DPS in the game, and the really nice thing for beginners is you can start doing her weekly runs at around trial rank 45. So you won't be there right away, but you will be able to get there quite quickly, especially if you are constantly playing. And Flora in general is just significantly more accessible than some of the other weekly characters. Flora is just so strong that it's really worth actually mentioning. So while I wouldn't tell a brand new player to completely ignore secret letter clue characters and just rush towards Flora specifically, she's definitely someone you should have in the back of your mind as you do progress. Once you reach the point where you can start farming her, remember, Flora should be one of your biggest priorities. Once you do have the other stuff mostly done, at least at the base with Rhythm, Fina, and Fushu, especially once you do start hitting the higher trial rank to let you farm. So in conclusion, if you're a brand new player and wondering who should I actually farm in the beginning, the simplified version would be starting with I2 Rhythm, then working towards Fushu and Fina, then getting I2 Fina. Once all that's done, prioritizing Psyche as a single target DPS, and also focusing on Truffle and Filbert to give you a strong healing and buffing option. There's some characters like both Margie and Tabitha we talked about helping fill in gaps earlier on, but you will actually replace them. As you progress further in your time playing the game, you start working towards the great tier characters, and also your weekly characters, especially Flora once you are able to farm her. The main point is don't feel like you need to build every single character you get right away. For a beginner, resource efficiency is much more important than having a huge roster of half-built characters. So first, focus on your core team, which in this case would be Rhythm plus Fushu and Fina. Then you could start branching out into some of the more specialized and endgame characters later, once you are ready and have your beginner stuff sorted out. But that is the full starter Duet Abyss tier list, basically giving you everything you do need to know in order to jumpstart your actual progress. So I do hope you found this video helpful. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.